firstly, in terms of panels, so as I introduce you, I'll ask you something interesting. Your favorite album?
I don't have a current favorite album, but my favorite album of all time has to be Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. So,
Okay. When I was coming through the parking lot, she was playing loud music. I thought for a moment is a student distressing, but I saw it was her. I was like, hey, it's lit. So maybe let's because I heard you already. Music. What type do you like, and what do you do for fun?
Sure, it depends on the time of day. I'm a morning gospel person. I'm a midday cozy person. So I don't know, Cozy FM is everything from home to the evening. Like when you heard me, I was looking for a song that will feel like a hug from the inside. So I kind of listen in the afternoon for songs that make me feel like I have a hug.
Why should I go after a CFA qualification?
Sure, that's an interesting question. Look, the winds of change is coming, okay? And if you look at the market, and this is also part and parcel of the conversation we're going to be having, is industry is slowly starting to shy away from the CA profession, because while we protect value, we do not create value, and that's a huge challenge. So in order for us to differentiate ourselves, you need to show your brand, you need to enhance your brand. And while CA will make you a top dog with regards to accounting, CFA makes you a real professional when it comes to finance. And more of industry is looking for finance professionals. So if you're seen as an accounting professional and a finance professional, then definitely you have got a very strong sort of a value proposition in market.
Okay. So a fun question, because that was a serious question.
I thought that was my question.
Okay. Fun question. There are a number of series that are out and trend about. Are you a person who watches or prefers it in terms of series?
Definitely.
Name two.
Two.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Game of Thrones. That's for sure. I don't know if you guys know Billions. Big fan of Billions.
Lecturers are not monsters. So while you're streaming, not doing your tabs, streaming Billions is also watching Billions. Talking, you said you were alone because the other speakers are not here. So for you, alone on a lonely day, I sat here because I entertain you.
Okay.
What do you do?
I sleep.
Sleep. Wow.
Because I don't get enough time to sleep.
Yeah.
So alone on a lonely day, I take my time and sleep and catch up on my sleep.
Okay. If you're going on holiday, which place do you want to go the most?
Zanzibar.
Why?
Because I want the breeze, the blue sea and nothing. No interruptions, no calls, nothing. That's what I want.
Okay. What do you like your own world? Sleep, there's no one except you.
Yeah.
Zanzibar, you want no one but you.
Yes, you need that moment.
In terms of your field of expertise, what is the most interesting thing you've come across?
Well, for me, it's been gamification. Developing games for teaching how to do software engineering.
So is it gamification? Development of games. So, because someone when is a doctor, right? In my mind, the person who always researches and studies, right? In your spare time, what do you enjoy doing? Except researching.
Well, I'm a sports fanatic.
Okay.
I watch a lot of soccer. I'll ask not to.
Cheaper United.
Well, Kaiser Chiefs.
A chartered accountant is someone who's more seen as a sort of a master when it comes to accounting. So would be called the guru of accounting, and this person uses their more superior knowledge to analyze businesses to go more of the high level overview of it. Then whereas a registered auditor is a subset of a chartered accountant, which is you take a CA and you further yourself into flip roles, basically, instead of actually analyzing and actually doing it and all those things, and flipping into you now analyzing for shareholders and other stakeholders, saying that is everything up to scratch, are they qualified, are they keeping up with all the necessary regulations and laws and all those things.
I'll give him some.
I like
generous.
So I hope we have the clear distinction.
I'm thinking of, we want to talk about exams are coming, June exams coming. So can you please explain what you mean?
Well, for me, fourth industrial revolution, it's a transition from analog technology or mechanization devices to digital devices. So what has happened is we have had 3 IRs, and it is important that we unpack that before we begin to even talk about 4IR, because 4IR has become a buzzword, but what is important, do we really understand the last 3? And then what are the features of the last 3? And then what do they mean to our profession? So for me, it's that transition that we are moving away from analog, from machines into the digital space. And then the currency there is data.
Basically what's going to happen is that everyone is going to get access to the data. So with this coming, it's now putting everything out there in the open, but also creating a risk, because now the risk of hackers, of people getting access, easy access to your information is going to be there.
You strict on something known as ethics. In an instance where with this fourth industrial revolution coming from, how does SAICA looking at it going to regulate the ethical side of things?
Let's take one step back, because I think there's something you touched on before we get into this one. You know, how many of you remember a Nokia phone? Not what they have now, but the original, you know, 5110. Because for me, I think it's important in how we think about what technology revolution is about. So before, all you could do with your phone was call, and then it moved to SMS, then it moved to mix it. Then suddenly it was called a smartphone, because now data, we could accept a bigger, 3G, so we could now have data-enabled things like WhatsApp. Now, how many of you have an iPhone? Or I don't know what the other one is. Ask kids, I know I speak to. And the other one, the other Chinese one. Yeah. All of them are able to, so right now, for many of them, you can use your thumb or you can use your facial identification. Think of revolution as that. It started as very analog, which what the good doctor was saying. Analog, where you could do just one thing. It was very rigid, to your face unlocking many, many things. So when we get into the space of, now that you've been staring at your phone and it's been collecting your data, that is your data. Now your face can do so many other things which gives rise to there's other people out there that want to use the same information, but not for good. Because for every technology is a good and a bad side. You know, mix it, there was a good thing, you could chat to your friends at one end, but also people got kidnapped by weird people. Unmix it. So there's that. So when we're looking at ethics, currently in your curriculum, you study ethics. The problem with us is that we always think ethics is this thing outside of us. No one can regulate your ethics. We can try, we can put rules in, we can ask you to do a CPD, we can do test things, but ultimately ethics is what lives inside of you. So it's the actual thing, you know. Let me sit this out a little bit. Yes, he said the CFA thing was important, and I think it is in the future. But what makes CAs, what used to make CAs the thing that people went to, the profession they went to, was they could trust their ethical conduct. The way they approach things was from an ethical perspective. They had the public interest, shareholder interest at the same time.
What industrial revolution is, how does it impact one, your way of delivering knowledge or the type of content you deliver to students? How does this coming off the IR?
Okay, so I think first and foremost it's important to note that the academic space are those that do not wake up to the winter coming. We wait for the winter to be full blown and then we start looking for our jackets. And that's unfortunately the space that we're in. And the reason why we're in that space is because, one, and this is, I think it's a weakness in the accounting profession, is that we look to our mother body to give us direction, which is SICA, all right? So all universities, all academic sort of programs in the accountancy field will always wait for SICA to tell them where to go and how to do it before they react. So if SICA doesn't give us that framework, it means universities are not going to react, because at the end of the day, we're competing against other universities. We're trying to get people to pass. So we sing or we dance to the tune of SICA, and that's a huge weakness. Okay, universities seldom, or let me not say universities, I'll stick within the accountancy sort of discipline. The accountancy discipline does not look at what's happening economy-wide, what's happening industry-wide, and precipitate that into lectures. So as it is, we're waiting for SICA to tell us this is where we go. So we are almost towing the line of CA 2025. And we're not really looking at this whole big thing called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Okay, and so that has not come through in our lectures. In order for it to come through in our lectures as well, the university's infrastructure must also embrace it. Okay, and embracing it means they must upgrade, they must give us, networks, they must enable, they must provide some funding to the students. Because as it stands, if we're to implement or react to the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we won't be able to do it from a resource point of view.
So my first question would be, when you became a CASA, were those expectations met? And if they were not met, how did you adjust your expectations for the profession?
If I may go first. So when I embarked on this journey, look, my family has come from a background of business, and when I wanted to study something, I wanted to study business. My dad was an accountant, and I decided, look, I want to be a CA. Okay, but obviously, jumping into the journey, there were dreams which were sold, and the dreams were that the world is your oyster. Okay, there's a lot of money which comes along with it. Okay, and so that drove me. Okay, that drove me to work really hard because I wanted the world to be my oyster. But the thing the world doesn't tell you, or academics do not tell you, is that from the moment you enter into university until you qualify as a CA, your life is definitely systematic, i.e. you know your next step. Then when you qualify as a CA, all of a sudden, you don't know where to go. You see, the CA qualification is as good as what you use it for. That in itself does not guarantee that the world is going to be your oyster. And so what most people fall into is this trap where they're like, I have arrived, and then they stop. Okay. And then only 5, 6, 7 years later, they reflect back and they start saying, I'm actually not satisfied. I haven't achieved this dream. Why? Because you forgot that the world is dynamic and you have to continue working and rediscovering yourself and redefining yourself. If you stop at the CA level, that world will not be your oyster. But the truth of the matter is, there's no qualification in the world that will make the world your oyster. It's here. And the more you think, the more you look at the world, the more you try and innovate yourself, the more you try and challenge yourself, the more you realize that you'll be able to piece together the world in order to capitalize on it. And that's actually the fundamental issue with the fourth industrial revolution, that you're having so many technologies crossing paths like never before at a rapid pace. And we need to find out what will our knowledge, how can we position ourselves so that we leverage the knowledge as CAs so we can play in this complex.
The question would be any type of accountant, a chartered one, a financial, general one, any type. So I'm sure so as you answer this particular question, let us try to touch on relevance in terms of student perspective, and to be sure, I believe also you have some questions.
Yeah.
So
but I'll ask them as we proceed.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So is the accounting profession going to be relevant in 2024? And Doctor, you're going to touch in terms of your field of work in terms of the technological space, the relevance of careers in accounting from your space and your perspective. And I think the nice thing of you coming through is you're not inside the profession, you look at it from the outside. So from your understanding and your knowledge, how is the relevance affected? Right? So we can start with you, Doctor, in terms of the relevance thereof.
I'm afraid to say it will have a great impact, especially what Kwesi said there. He said, you guys, what you need to understand is that you are systematized. And then if you're systematized, I don't know whether human beings can do that better than machines. So I think the fundamental question then that you have to be asking as students is the relationship between machines and human beings. One of the things that I saw that the accounting profession does, you guys, you measure things and then you process and then you communicate. And then so I begin to ask myself in terms of looking at some of the machines that are already out there. You're looking at Watson. One of the instances of Watson is sitting here in Bram, and it can process information and it can speak in multiple languages. So I think the roles are going to shift, whether you like it or not. You could be aspiring to be a CA today, but I can tell you that in no time things can change. We need to be doing research in looking at how do we position these machines into the profession. Because whether you like it or not, the machines that are out there, they are studying patterns at a faster rate. We talk about quantum computing is here already, whether we like it or not. So we will never beat computers. However, we are the ones who are designing and implementing these machines. So our roles are going to change.
Put reality check on it. There actually already is an AI type bot type that's already doing internal audit. It's already been developed by one of the big institutions. They developed it because they're just trying to figure out how do they save on internal audit and get continuous assurance. So in trying to get continuous assurance, they've created bots that are able to give them assessment on a daily basis. So the role of a CA is definitely changing. I think, for example, I don't want to say I'm not a practicing CA, but I'm not a practicing CA the way you think of CAs. Because it is such an evolution. I think if you are sitting here and your reliance is your ability to read a textbook and put an answer on the book and pass, you're already redundant. In fact, as a CA, what the expectation would be if I hired you in a few years' time would be that you are able to understand what is coming out of all the different technologies, decipher it for me so that I can understand it as a business person to actually implement a strategy. I do not need you to tell me data. I need information out of you. And that's where the biggest trick is. And that's where I want to agree with Chrissy that it's going to be very difficult for lecturers, because what I would want to see as a project, a fourth-year project, would be you designing a robotic or an AI process that can do deferred tax. Because now it means you understand what goes into it, why we are doing deferred tax, what are the processes that need to happen in the business, how does the business run, and how do you make sure that this thing is able to pick the right info so that it spews it out at the end, and you are then able, when you see that number, know what to do with it and what does it mean. That's the practicality of it. It sounds like a lot, but that's how you should be thinking about every single tutorial you're getting. You know, the doctor talking about gamification. You need to figure out, how do you figure out a way to get your board of the company that you are now working in to be able to visualize what you were saying and not just see numbers as a spreadsheet, but be able to see, what do you mean? If you're saying to them, put 1 million, what are they going to see? How are you creating those pictures? So you actually have to speak the language of, you know, the guys that you look down upon when you walk up, since I'm ex here. You know those IT guys that look weird? I suggest you become friendly to them. Understand, you don't have to code, you need to understand how to be able to communicate your idea to somebody who codes and be able to evaluate what they've coded as relevant to what you wanted. So I suggest, Jola naye, but make a plan to understand what do they do, how do you communicate the way they communicate so that you are still relevant. Because that's when we talk CA 2025, and maybe this is where I've got a slight advantage for my mini cycle, is that's part of what we are debating with Saka, is that the first thing, you know, you didn't join this profession to be mediocre. You joined it because you wanted to be at the table. For those of you that knew what you were joining, at least you're better than me. Yeah, just somebody paid me. Deloitte said, hey, we'll pay you to study this. I was like, sure. Let me know later on what we study. But if you have chosen this, so we are trying to say, how do we carve a room for a CA at the table? Because really, engineers are doing, maybe an engineer can be a CFO, an FD. So the roles that used to be our roles are no longer our roles. They are anyone's role. So you now need to create, what is that thing that you bring into the table? But two, just to close, what's nice with FYR, it forces you to go back and understand where you come from. Because that's where innovation and creativity comes from. If you are in touch with where you come from, you become much more solution driven, because you are thinking of a practical solution, not a theoretical solution. You're thinking of something that solves people's lives. You know, one of the MIT professors, one of his famous quotes was, if something can change a human condition, it will catch on. People will do it. I mean, if you think about it now, some of us, like enough, not me, are slightly too young, were there at the time when people could smoke in a plane. Now, can you even imagine somebody smoking in a plane? And that's where we're going technology. In the same way that right now we're thinking, I want to drive my own car, I want to be in the supercar. Actually, in a few years' time, driving may not be the sexy thing. So you need to rethink the way you have imagined things. But that was about the person who's going to make autonomous vehicles famous is with the person that sees a real problem and markets it in connection to that problem and has already thought about what to do with the people doing it right now. That's where you come in. You're the future strategist.
Well summed up there. That, you know, the problem right now is the survival of the CA depends on how we define, or rather not the CA, let's say the accountant, depends on how we define. For centuries, we've held the same definition of what an accountant is, okay, in that they're transactions and you just convert those transactions into information, okay, and you analyze and we think our life in. And that is, it's always a sad definition to hear students put forward, because you are creating a silo. But that's also the nature of the beast, in that accounting has been treated as this thing that doesn't change, it doesn't move. But the fourth industrial revolution is going to force us to redefine. And so our survival depends on our ability to move to a higher level of the economy. When I say higher level, an accountant, okay, and this is going to be controversial, is actually, from a finance point of view, is a derivative. A derivative is an instrument that derives its value from somewhere else. What I'm saying is, if there are no visionaries, if there are no entrepreneurs, if there are no strategists, the role of the accountant is useless. It's useless because we only exist when there's a business that needs to account to its shareholders. Okay, but that role is going to be taken away quickly by technology. If you think about blockchain as an example, if you guys know what blockchain is. Earlier on, Tandika spoke about ethics, okay, is one of the prime reasons that we're regarded really high, okay? Over the past 2 years, it has been challenged completely. So ethics will no longer become a currency that we can sell. Technology is going to replace that. Blockchain technology means that you can generate financial statements which unquestionably will be much more accurate and no one will question its validity, accuracy, and completeness. So we need to move away from that. We need to move to a level where we're doing things that computers cannot do. Strategy, being vision. There's no computer that will wake up one day and say, I have a dream. I have seen a problem and I want to solve that problem. And so the way we leverage our understanding of accounting is to make sure that we understand in a context which allows us to solve problems. If we do that, solving problems has got no set rules. It just means you need to cross-pollinate ideas from different industries, from different topics, to carve a niche for yourself. Okay, and that's what the future accountant is going to be. We need to start thinking more about those. In terms of, if we look at the accounting process in itself, now I'm going into a very silo sort of mode. Someone needs to define the rules of the game, and a computer cannot do it. No amount of networking can decide on the rules of the game. Okay, but when it comes to validating information, when it comes to processing information, which is what we majority spend most of our time doing, that is going to disappear. Okay, and so 2025 is too early, in my view. But in the long run, I promise you that most of the work we're doing now will disappear. And we need to start looking at more qualitative factors.
As you sit there, what is important is to ask yourself where the profession is and where is it going in terms of business. There are two banks that have been recently established, and the behavioral bank, which is Discover, and then the digital bank, which is the Time Bank. And then suddenly you hear Standard Bank closing some of their branches. Thank goodness to Capitec. Though they don't get the credit, but I think they really disrupted the banking industry. So it's a very, very important, guys, that you sit there, whatever technology that you are holding, ask yourself, what can I do with this tool? What does it mean for my professional growth, for my progress in this life? Because you will find yourself redundant, and then you will say to us, I have a VETS degree, BCom accounting degree, distinction. You walk with chest high and everything, and the great hall. But you're sitting at home now, and then you write to newspapers that I have all these degrees, but everybody do have a degree, you know, or degrees. So I think what is important is for us to position ourselves and see where we are and understand our environment. If you are a student and then you're not reading any reports about business daily or weekly, I think we are in trouble because you are not aware of your environment or what is going on within your profession.
I just want to also talk on a couple of people comfort over before they go to see Sarafina and want to deregister. So the World Economic Forum released a report last year called the Future of Jobs Report. Right? So I highly recommend that you guys check it out. But in the Future of Jobs report, it outlined what kind of jobs are first going to be redundant. And it actually made a list of those jobs that are going to be redundant. But it said that jobs are expected to become increasingly redundant over the 2018 to 2022 years are routine, so things that you're expected to do, middle skilled, and white collar roles. So a combination of all those three things, they're the ones that you can look at as a chopping block. So in the case of a normal accountant, they're definitely on the chopping block. But as for a chartered accountant, being what was said, which is we have more of a strategic role, being that you're using our cognitive abilities, which is at this point in time, robots can't do that as yet, so we're safe for now. So I think in that case, we're still sort of exonerated from that.
I think it's what everyone's been saying, position yourself in such a way that you can contribute and be someone who's of some sort of value. But I think my question maybe isn't relevant to you guys, but I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. What do you say to the student who's in an underprivileged environment? So for instance, I'm a student also Soweto, and I don't have access to technologies because, like we say, it's fourth industrial revolution, it's coming at us, but that person doesn't have this type of technology at their hands. So what do you think that means for the future of jobs for a vast majority of South Africans in terms of not just like, you know, the CA profession, but just any and everywhere? So how can a 10-year-old right now who doesn't have access in terms of, you know, the kind of home that they come from, how do they then see themselves being a CA, SA in 2025, 2032? What do you think are some of the things that maybe as a country or maybe the CA profession can do to bridge that gap in terms of getting someone who doesn't have access to those things to be someone who can still contribute in the economy of South Africa?
So my question is posed to Kwasi, right? So like this prides itself in developing leaders so that they have a lot of leaders who are already out there, right? So I think it's something that happened in the past, like this, I don't know what they did then, but I think over time from experience with other individuals, I think it's losing that touch. We are just becoming like any other varsities graduates, right? So as lecturers or as Wits, what is it that you are doing, or what, I understand that it's our responsibility to brand ourselves and to be informed, but what is Wits doing to guide us? Because part of the reasons why we chose to come to Wits is because we expect guidance from you as lecturers or the content, and it's not enough for us to just get tests and exams and all of that. So how is Wits helping us, at least because seats at the table are becoming limited, so how is Wits trying to make their graduates part of the people who do get a seat at the table?
I think, Tanya, also this would be something you touch on, because from a SAGE perspective, they're more focused from developing those type of products. So what do we say to that student in terms of positioning themselves to be relevant in 2025 and going forward? And second, I think even another angle to say the same question is in terms of, instead of necessarily even what VET is doing particularly for us, but how is VET doing to still maintain its relevance in production of leaders in industry, given 4IR coming through? So, give or take, Ntabi, on the first question that we took.
Okay.
4IR.
Okay, I'm gonna take it from my personal experience. First of all, as a CA, like all the panels have spoken, we have these silos. As soon as you break those silos, then you're positioning yourself. Because in a sense that when I got to my job at SAGE, I was given a job description, analyst, blah, 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 you're gonna be doing focus, whatever. Simple everything from. 90% of my time I'm spending with your IT guys. So I had to think, okay, am I gonna come in at Sage and do analytical role and be like, okay, 1 + 1 is this, cost of sales went up, went down? No. I had to go learn from scratch, sit with the IT people, sit with the whoever software programmers, sit with the marketing department and come up with a strategy. So you have to position your mind in such a sense that you are no longer thinking that, okay, I'm going to be a CA, I'm going to do this, and then I've made it. You have to position your mind in such a way that after CA, there's more learning for you. Because when I entered I entered day 1 and they told me, okay, Ntabi, strat plan vision 2021. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be doing forecast and that. And my boss was like, no, we can do that. Give us your thought. You are now the latest generation of, you are the youngest here. Give us your thought. Where do you think we headed? I had to go back, learn everything from scratch. So if you as an individual are willing to learn, you will still be relevant. But if you are putting yourself in a silo that says, okay, I'm going to be analyzing, sorry, Sham, forget.
Probably maybe let me add on the question you're saying, because for me it always hurts me because people think that way. Where do you think I went to school? Just as a guess. How many people are from KZN here? How many people drive past Maritzburg towards Durban? How many of you know Mpumalanga Township Hammerstein? That's home. There was zero technology. It is a complete town that was built around Glodina and Rainbow Chicken. And the thing is, when we sit here and we assume that a person who is there is not accessing technology. In fact, I can question you and say, that person in general is more in touch with technology than you here, because that's the only way they can access the outside world. So that person will tell you things about how to work Facebook and WhatsApp and all of those things that you just post a picture. I have a friend who literally left school at 8, grew up in the same neighborhood, late parents. All she knew was how to, cook and bake. She worked at Spa for most of her life. She got business because she used to post her cakes on Facebook. So my point to us is that we actually here, the privilege, there's a higher chance of you being redundant than the person whose life has always been about creating a solution when there is no solution. That's why when I said earlier on, it is important when you think about your future to remember where you come from, because then you are much more relevant around how you solution. So yes, there are structural things like there's no network, there's no this, but there's also you as a person. In every community, there's always that one spot where government has put one spot of data. You always are able to find someone to give you a gig of data. So it isn't about complete no access. It is about your mind, your approach. Do you want somebody to save you, or are you wanting to save yourself? Then it shifts. Then every other opportunity comes to be. As a last example, I had a conversation with somebody. He was saying to me, I wish I was could be an entrepreneur. I need 5 million to be an entrepreneur. And my answer to him was like, well, clearly you're not an entrepreneur. You need 0 cents to be an entrepreneur. You need spirit, grit, and a lot of persuasion of things that people would not give otherwise. But that comes from, and as a result, when you go out there, when you look at CNN or you look at The Economist, the person who's developed a water purification thing was not sitting in Sandton.
Yeah.
It's the one who had to struggle with the water being dirty every day that created the water purification. Because when you're in a space where you believe there is no other choice but to be innovative, then you are innovative. But while you are still saying, and you can answer from Wits and be all kind to them because you are their lecturer, the Wits owes you nothing. Wits, you know what you pay I don't know how much it is, 80 grand for. You pay that 80 grand to engage with other people that you would not have engaged with, to network with the people that will be your peers in the future, and to figure out who you are in a situation where there's no one to catch you. That's what Wits teaches you. That's where the edge comes in. The other stuff that they're doing is the content. The other bit is content. Right now, in all honesty, I know we're scaring you, but in all honesty, you're already prepared for 4IR. Because 4IR isn't a thing that someone's going to teach you. It's a way of thinking. It's a curiosity about now that this technology is there. You know, I can almost guarantee 60% of you here, when the good doctor said Watson had no cooking clue what he said, but you nodded your head because your neighbor said nodded. And I can almost guarantee of that 60%, 2% will go to the doctor and ask, so, what is Watson? And I'm not asking you to all flock to him, but I'm just saying that's what is going to happen. If you acknowledge that within yourself, that was you, that's what makes you unprepared for the future. It's not because you're not being given the basics. You've got the ethical grounding, you know what the core of what it's supposed to be. The rest, no one can make you connect things from different places. And I think at this point, before I forget, I actually salute ABASA Wits for making sure that there's a non-CA in this room. Because we like speaking lies to each other. and it's important that we realize that, because we will get into that space where with everything, 300, 400, 500,000 rand later, you are still not impactful. Sorry to take
I think let me just juxtapose what she's saying, Tandega there. You know, colleagues, the 4IR can be also an excluding tool in terms of development and also in terms of social injustice. However, we need to still unpack these other 3 IRs, because at the third IR, the expectation was that the infrastructure will have been developed so that we are able to operate wherever I am, whether I'm in Mpumalanga, in the middle of Acornhoek, wherever, I'm in Gumundlovu, wherever, I'm in Piet Retief, I should be able to connect. But the truth of the matter is that the infrastructure is still not there. So we need to really be careful there and try to understand. This is the question that you're going to be answering. How can we use this 4IR to include or as an inclusive tool? You're going to answer those questions. Whether you come from Soweto, I think the good thing about Soweto, the population is there. So then you need to be thinking about business there. Why people should they be flocking to Cresta Mall, to the Sentinel Mall, to the Mall of Africa, when we can literally create business opportunities there? I can tell you the people I'm living Maponya Mall there, and then go out of Soweto. And then you ask yourself, why are we doing that? It's because of this mentality that we've been socialized that, you know, our environment are not good enough. And so if we are not careful, also these digital tools can be an exclusive tool.
Question on the second question, and then noted 3 hands again so that we can go to the next question.
Okay. So just to recap that question, you're basically saying that Wits prides itself as a leader, and you're getting the sense that we're losing that brand of leadership. And so what is Wits doing to reclaim that position? So my answer is going to be in one of 2. Is going to present it in one of 2. And one is about a personal choice. The other is my position as more of a critic of the Wits sort of structure. Okay. So from the personal point of view, is that, you know, when Wits says that they are growing leaders. You personally have to own that for yourself. Okay. What students don't realize, and it's actually more a challenge for your generation, is you think someone is going to bring all the goods to you, or rather, there's a plane, you just sit in it, and it will take you to your destination. Okay, and that is a big problem that we're experiencing. People have forgotten to take ownership, to drive their leadership mentality based on the platform which has been provided. Okay, so there is a huge onus on the student body to actually grab the opportunity that WITS is presenting, okay, to drive themselves. Not for WITS to drive you, but to drive yourself. Because when you drive yourself, no one can take away that leadership stigma from you, okay? And I think that's probably what most of the other universities are doing, making their students realize that they have to drive progress by themselves. And then those institutions will provide the necessary infrastructure for them. Okay. So when it comes to infrastructure, and infrastructure will include like hard and soft infrastructure. Now I'll define that. From a hard infrastructure point of view, I think WITS is doing quite a bit, okay, to introduce that infrastructure. I mean, if you look at what has been happening over the past years, they're installing new systems, networks around. It hasn't gone live yet, okay, but once it goes live, you'll have access to reliable network in your class, okay, and across campus. Now that is information at your fingertips. You need not go anywhere in order to tap into this idea of the fourth industrial revolution. You need not go anywhere to get this information to groom yourself as the leader that you want to be. So I think WITS is doing that. Obviously, it will take time, okay. The soft infrastructure part is probably where I'm a big critic of WITS. And that is how, and notice that when I say WITS, I'm actually talking about the School of Accountancy. Because that's where my knowledge is. I can't profess knowledge in as to what's happening elsewhere. So if we look at CLM, okay, one of the best ways to sort of groom you guys is not to make your path at university linear. Okay, so right now, if you come to the School of Accountancy, there are only two exits, BCom or BXI. Okay, BCom, and that's two.
Yeah.
We are not sort of communicating that you can cross-pollinate ideas. Okay, so how can we do that? In my view, we should be promoting accounting and information systems, accounting and computer science, accounting economics as majors, okay? And the way we structure our program should make it in such a way that you come in at first year, and most of the time, students at first year, they really don't know what they want. Even second year, you're not too sure. But you know what the problem is? When you get, so you pass first year, you pass second year, you get to third year, and then you meet me, okay? And then all of a sudden, life changes. It becomes challenging. But you know what the issue is, okay? And let me narrate this before I get to the issue. I went on an otter trail. So otter trail is in the Eastern Cape, right? It's a 45-kilometer hike, which you do over 5 days, okay? And it's by the ocean, and it's beautiful, okay? So now, here's the thing. Let's say you've gone 20 kilometers into this hike, and you decide, you know what, this is not for me. These guys have got exit routes, okay? But those exit routes are worse than you continuing. So what do you think someone is going to do? You're going to continue. You're not going to exit. And I think that's what's happening right now. That at the third year level, you've worked so hard. Okay, you get to this point and it's not working, but you don't have an exit route. So you try and you work and you work and you work. Okay, and a degree that you should have completed in 4 years, you've completed in 6. Okay, and I think that's from a soft infrastructure point of view, that's a fail. Because you should be able to say, I've done third year, I want to go, let's say, economics. Okay, I've gone to third year, but I think I like information systems. I like computer science, and I want to pad it to my knowledge of accounting, so that you leave here with a multiple degrees. So we encourage cross-pollination of ideas. You can think of accounting and psychology. Guys like behavioral finance is becoming such an important part of finance. What I teach you guys is old and traditional. Okay, behavior, how do you harness human behavior? You need psychology. Okay, but our system is very rigid in that we want to follow rules. Okay, we have these systems, you need to get so many points, and so we're not going to create any more exit routes. And I think that's where WITS is failing. If I compare ourselves to other universities, okay, like let's take UCT because I know a lot about that. So, for instance, myself, when I went to varsity, okay, I double majored in accounting and finance. And when I say double major, I'm not talking about BXI where you do some finance. You do 4 years of solid specialized finance. But on top of it, what you guys don't know is I'm a pretty good programmer when it comes to computer science. Okay, why? Because they allowed you to pad your sort of degree with other sort of courses. Okay, so where over here you guys will do like in accounting information systems, you do 1 week of Excel and Word, and that's it. Okay, all right. I did a whole year of computer programming, okay, which allowed me to sort of appreciate computers and see how these things sort of integrate. And I think from a soft structure point of view, the way our courses are designed, we are a bit too rigid. And that is where we are failing you guys in terms of opening your mind to the possibilities of what you can achieve here.
Then when you clapping hands, it means you're satisfied in terms of the answers. And that is what actually today is about.
I think the reality is the ground is definitely shifting. I think there are two professions that I can safely say for now, they will be safe for the next, I think, 15 to 20 years. I think it's going to be a teacher and a chef. And when you begin to talk about ethical behavior, I don't think you can associate ethics with a human being. I would find it difficult to trust a human being than to trust a machine. And I think that is why we need to engage with this fundamental question on the relationship between human beings and machines. And then I also work for another company called Nationwide. It's one of the biggest insurance companies in the US. And I was also a developer there. But I was sitting with underwriters, the people that were supposed to be evaluating activities out there. But I was literally sitting there cloning literally. You know, and the decisions that were the computers that we needed to make decisions right there and there. Accidents are happening, everything is happening. We need to make sure that the transaction that needs to happen, somebody sitting somewhere saying, guys, we're not making money. You know, we are losing money. Why are we losing money? And then somebody else is sitting in New York firing questions. We're already programming those things, guys. So these machines, guys, are already here. Actually, not right now, I'm thinking in my research group, I'm looking at this issue of learners that they start grade 1, but about 48 to 50% don't finish matric. And then we are looking at systems that can actually begin to study the behavior.
It doesn't matter if Kwazi comes, he can teach you, wait again, 30 years. You can be here in 30 years. Do whatever. There is nothing that's going to prepare you for commercial out there. He is putting in a foundation. It's up to you. It all depends on you what you do after that CA qualification. Because for me, and this is something I learned from my audit partner, he said to me, Ntavi, be a CA. After being a CA, you can decide whatever you want to be. And that's true because the foundation that they taught me in varsity, I'm still applying it now. I'm not doing FM because all those funny roles. No, I'm not doing that. But the foundation that they taught me is helping me in what I want to do. It's all up to you what you make of this profession. no one's going to teach you or prepare you for what's out there, and it's hard, guys. It's either you're going to sink or swim. So it's up to you guys to decide what you're going to do.
In my closing statement, first and foremost, the question about which profession you should choose, or professional designation you should choose over and above the CA. The point I want to raise is, don't let the professional designation define you or your career. See it as a tool, okay, to open different doors. So that argument, I don't think should be such a high priority, as opposed to figuring out what solutions you want to solve. Okay. So the other thing is, how do we overcome our challenges? Okay. We say that, look, you know, there are the haves and the have-nots, people who've been sitting with technology all their lives. When there's chaos, when the game changes, when the rules of the game changes, it gives you a prime opportunity to also reposition yourself so that you can be ahead of the game. Okay. Revolution. It gives everyone the opportunity to change their position. So once it is full blown, who knows, maybe we'll find ourselves ahead of the curve. Okay, and that's why we must embrace it. We shouldn't be afraid of it. But in doing that, what should we try and focus on? Okay, technical skills are good, but there's a certain skill which will allow you to connect, okay, and to function very well, okay, in this fourth industrial revolution. And these are the soft skills. Your ability to connect with people. Guys, it starts here. Can you connect with your students? With your fellow students? Okay. Can you negotiate with them? Okay. Can you persuade them about an idea that you have? These are very, very important. Can you present an idea? You want to solve a problem. Can you present it in the most effective way to the next person so they can buy in to what you want to solve? And are you able to develop effective strategies to capture whatever vision or mission you have? If you start working on these and sort of pad your textbook knowledge with these soft skills, I promise you that we're going to do well in the fourth industrial revolution. We're going to catch up.
The CA profession is so, things are there. What we have lacked all the time is a frank conversation that says, by merely being present will not equal success. Two, depth is important. You know what? The Titanic did not fall over because of the rock on top. It was at the piece at the bottom. The 4R requires us to have depth. Understand things deeply so you can solve them. We can't be here. You're this expert of everything. And that's the challenge now for us CAs. Because now, you always have to choose in your mind, am I going to be a CA good in retail? Because then you begin to think about retail solutions. Am I going to be a CA good in tech businesses? Am I going to be a CA? Because now, whereas before you could just be a CA, now you must think about which sector, which industry, which space. Do you want to be the CA that partners with entrepreneurs, that thinks differently? You guys don't invest in debt. You don't invest in knowing anything beyond the 140 characters of Twitter.
Yo.
Your depth is understanding the environment you are working in. Some of the questions you're asking now actually highlight that you're not doing depth. Because if you understood depth, you would not ask questions about what are the other qualifications I need to study. What is asset management? Guys, it's Wikipedia. It's there. It's written. There's even YouTube clips on people. No, I'm not picking on you, but I'm just here that ask questions so you have vision. So you're going to feel it as if I'm talking to you, but I'm not. So it's not about you because other people asked it before, so unfortunately you become my guinea pig for the day. But don't worry. I know where it's coming from, but I want us to own that there is a reason why certain information was not shared with our parents. If you go into history, you'll understand why many of us don't have parents that are engineers. If you bothered going into history. Because when you go into history, you understand that anyone who oppresses you understands that if I give you a technical skill that allows you to create, I run the risk that you would create outside of it. You would create a functional business. There is a reason for that. So yes, many of the careers in the future might be redundant, but what we are trying to teach you now is a skill that you can build upon. And a skill is not always a master's or a master's. You know, I know for a fact that I am supporter number one of anyone who wants to do a doctorate. I am your best friend. I can help you research. I'll give you support. I'm all of those people, but I would probably not do a doctorate myself. The only reason because I know how I learn, and I love hanging around people who can help me with depth. So my friends I would know friends who are continuously learning. But the way I learn is I like doing and reading and asking questions and allowing myself to be wrong. I do that.